We're not
I
cutting
think
them
we have
off.
a question over here.
Two things. One is having two Gen Ys ourselves. I'm curious that you haven't brought up anything about the video gaming platforms, which are huge entree to a captive audience.
Oh,
where
yeah.
they are.
Yeah, well, Zynga,
gamification, right?
yeah, gamification. Zynga made $300 million last year. Actually, more than that last year. It's analysts report. What did they sell? Does anybody know what they sold for that $300 million?
The social thing, game things.
Virtual goods.
Virtual goods.
There you go.
Air. They sold virtual goats, virtual cows. What a business. No inventory.
Right, exactly.
What
No
a
cow mess to
business.
clean up. You just sell a virtual cow.
Virtual cows.
Right. Doesn't
So
smell.
yeah, that is huge. That's
No
absolutely
milking
huge. And so
needed.
when you look at a company like Zynga that's partnering with Facebook, and now they're talking about partnering with Google, so they're doing the whole partnering thing, because Google's now saying, hey, we want some of that. We want people to spend time on our platform. But they're coming out with new games all the time. So they also are in the time magnet space. They have to continue to keep
Okay.
coming out with, there's Farmville, there's Cityville, there's Mafia Wars.
Mafia Wars.
Just lots of things to pull them in and keep
One
them
could
going.
argue, is that another gang of four that eventually Zynga, the platform, becomes, I don't know, so you start building your own games on it? Who
The
knows,
reason
right?
I wouldn't call Zynga a platform just yet is that it's really a really important plank on, at this point, Facebook's platform.
Yeah.
And yes, they're going to go with Google. But one of the interesting things is you almost have this mutually assured destruction. So if Facebook were to ever say, we're turning off Zynga, that kills Zynga, but it also takes a lot of money away from Facebook, because now with Facebook credits, they get 30%. So that's another notion in the book of frenemies and co-opetition, right? It's very uneasy, which I think makes a lot of people uncomfortable. This is why I think that either people are going to go, you're completely right with this book, or you're insane. Because the old way of doing things often was, we have to do it here, we have to control everything. And I think in the age of the platform, in large part, it's about giving up total control. Right? Now, not everything is totally open. You may make APIs available, right? But we've seen this in the Apple Store, right? I mean, Steve Jobs had actually said, I quote in the book, we don't need any more fart apps, right? So, and there actually was this really interesting story of a company that had spent something like $2 million on a marketing budget, and Apple would not approve the app. What could they do? Right? So it's if you want to play by their rules, you have to kind of ante up to the tune of 30% or some terms that you may not like.
Yeah, there's some interesting things going on too in partners. I was talking to a company last week that some of these companies are garnering their developers, and they're saying, if you develop for our platform, you are not to develop for this other platform. And so they're trying to lock in some of the agreements with the developers. It's a very interesting dynamic that's going on
That's
out
the stick.
with some of these players right
No
now.
carrot in there, right?
Yeah.
So I actually wanted to make a couple points about that. It'll go back to the point of speed. I also want to tie it to something you brought up in your question, Mark, and then I'm going to wing it all the way back to what do we do as companies in the form of creating a counter strategy to the way we approach the market today, which is much more anticipatory. So point number one, today, what is the second most popular game on Facebook? It is an EA game. EA, which is redefining it, it was of the old school. We
yep.
sell DVDs, and they are the transaction, and you just trust us on a year-over-year basis to update the game. So when Zynga has Farmville at 54 million active users, EA has the second at 37 million active users. Now Zynga still has 7 of the top 10. But this point about platform wars within a mega platform is about to emerge. Point one. Point two, when Netflix thinks about whether they stay, they build planks, this is our job, right? I mean, Netflix is at a point where they are making live or die business strategy decisions based upon partnerships. And one of the questions they have to ask is, what do we seed and what do we go in? You asked almost a philosophical question, something that GE made formulaic for, but which is, what is it we're going to do, number one or number two, and what is it is just so far past we could never catch up, and if we think we can catch up, how long do we invest and hold that position as number 2, hoping for a mistake from number 1, right? These are partnering, these are strategy decisions, and they're being fused faster and faster. Last point, Jean-Claude Viquet departed. And I go back to what does one do about this? Even if you're not going to be the Gang of 4, the next Gang of 4, what does one do about this? The ideas around what Salesforce already brought to market, the Chief Customer Success Officer, the idea of the Chief Platform Officer, the idea of the Chief Contrarian Officer, right? You have to begin to think, if you're going to make mistakes, let's be positive about, hey, we tried something, we made a mistake, but we learned from you, and we captured that, and we will reapproach. And it's continuous. And I think that we as large organizations, particularly the large organizations, have got to allow for a line of thinking that really is going to make a lot of the existing, the people who have had 20 and 25-year careers, the people that Phil is going to speak to in Washington in a week or two, in December, upset. And maybe it's better you're upset before you're dethroned, right? Because we see it.
Well, it's interesting. In the new Steve Jobs book, Jobs was, I guess, paranoid about the innovator's dilemma, but he was thinking, I would rather cannibalize my business than have somebody else do it.
Yeah.